appreciate you joining us live today. And we've got a great webinar ahead from HireClicks about the 4 reasons your referral program underperforms. And before I introduce our primary speaker, which we're very excited to have, we want to thank HireClicks for being a supporter of the Candies and appreciate their ongoing support. A couple of housekeeping items, but really quick. We're recording this webinar, so we will make it available after the fact tomorrow, but we appreciate you being here live as well. And feel free to submit questions throughout the webinar based on information that Kara shares with us today that you would like to get some answers to, and we'll get to those again at the very end of the webinar. So you can submit those to either the Q&A part of the Zoom console on the dashboard or through the chat function works too. That's fine. So thank you very much for joining us. Kara Yarnot, the VP of Strategic Consulting Services at HireClicks. Kara, thank you so much for joining us today. And I am going to vamoose for a while and I'll be back at the end.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Hi, everybody. Afternoon or good morning to you, depending on where you're calling in from. I'm excited to have so many great people on the line for this webinar on one of my very favorite topics, referral programs. I'm also excited to see I've seen a few current and past clients popping on the list. So hi to all of you I've worked with in the past and currently. Really excited to have you here talking about referral programs. So a little bit of history on me that's here on the slide. I welcome the opportunity to connect with any of you. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. My email address is there as well. I've been in the consulting world 8 years now after I left my last corporate job as VP of Talent Acquisition for SAIC. I lead the consulting team at HireClicks, and looking forward to connecting with as many of you as possible. What are we going to do today? I don't really like agendas. I like to talk about goals. What are the goals for today? You're going to be able to benchmark your program against other companies. All of the data I'm going to share is from the 2020 HireClicks referral program survey we conducted earlier this year. If anybody on the line participated, thank you very much. So we've got a lot of great data that will help you benchmark your program. That also helps us understand where some of the challenges might exist for employers. And so really giving you ideas to improve your program, some of which cost nothing, more just labor on your part. Others obviously might potentially have some cost to them. But that's what I want you to walk away with today is getting a sense of where your program sits against other companies and leave with a handful of ideas of things that you could implement for your program in 2021. So I want to start off with some of the basic results from the survey that we conducted earlier this year. And I have a lot of data for you, but just to kind of set the stage, the demographic information around what kinds of companies responded. So we're pretty evenly split between companies with fewer than 2,500 employees and companies with more than 2,500 employees. So we've got a good mix of small, medium, and large businesses in the survey. Looking at how much hiring that they do, you can see the breakdown here. Those that are hiring, about half of the participants hire less than 100 people a year. And referrals can really make a big difference in that volume of hiring, almost more so than they do in the really large hiring organizations. But the data will apply to many different scenarios. And then of the participants, almost 80% have a formal referral program. We did a similar survey about 5 years ago, and that was just around 60%. So referral programs have really grown over the last 5 years, which is not surprising, as there's a lot of research around the quality of hires of referrals and how long they stick around in the organization, what their tenure is. Our survey didn't go into that. It was more around mechanics of the program and results, but it gives you a sense of how referral programs have grown in our industry in the last 5 years. Of our participants, we had a really great cross-section of different types of employers, from education and nonprofit to, finance and banking, manufacturing, technologies all included in there. So we're pretty happy with the makeup of a whole host of different companies in different industries. So we really are getting a pretty good cross-section of data here. And then how do the companies operate? A full 46% of the participants have global operations. And I think we phrased it in the survey that they were operating in 3 or more countries. The next most popular were companies in North America, Canada, the US, and or Mexico, or regionally, just existing regionally here in the US. We had some European and African companies participate as well, but that gives you a little bit of a breakdown as well of what kinds of companies responded, just to help you put some perspective on the data. I'm a big person around goals, particularly for referral programs. What are you trying to accomplish with the referral program? So we did ask our participants, what goals do they set for their programs? And the most popular goal, almost 2/3 of the participants said they have a goal around the percent of external hires coming from referrals. And that is a pretty standard leading metric that organizations are tracking. Other things they look at are, quality of their referral hires, percent of employees participating in the program. I love this metric. If you aren't tracking this today, I encourage you to do so. It tells you several things. It gives you a little bit of sense of commitment of individuals to the organization. Those companies that have higher participation tend to also have higher engagement scores if you participate in those types of surveys. But it also goes to your internal marketing efforts, which we are going to talk about today. How aware is your employee base about the program? Do they know how to submit a referral, who should be referred? Other metrics that people are tracking: time to fill on referral hires, candidate diversity. This is one I've seen emerge in the last few years, really leveraging referral programs to increase the diversity of your candidate pool. And some of you might be thinking, because I used to think this way as well, wait, referral programs just kind of perpetuate the current diversity problems that we have. It's not necessarily the case. It depends on how you approach it. And I'm going to give you some ideas on this a little bit later. And a full 25% of our respondents don't have specific goals. So I would encourage you, if you fall in that category, to look at some of these types of goals as things that you can use to measure your program. So we look at what are they measuring, which is great, but then are they actually meeting their goals? This is really important to know. So of the types of goals, and some of these were not in the top goals on the previous slide, but what are people meeting? This is a great one: reduction in spend on third-party recruiting agencies. That's one of my favorite metrics to bring forward as a part of an ROI justification for a referral program. If you're getting quality referrals from your employees, you are likely to rely less on those third-party external agencies. So I encourage you, if you're looking to justify either starting a program or expanding what you currently do, take a look at what it is you're spending on third-party agencies and start to use that as a potential part of your analysis to say, if we cut this down by 25%, 50%, the amount of money that you will save, I promise you. I've yet to find an analysis where this ROI does not justify launching a program or expanding. Other things folks are looking at, percent of referral hires invited to an in-person interview. They're meeting those goals. Turnover rates as referral hires. I mentioned earlier, there's a reasonable amount of research that shows turnover rates of referral hires are lower than non-referral hires, and percent of external hires from referrals. Goals that aren't being met, areas companies are still struggling with, percent of employees participating in the program. I talked about that, and we'll dig into that one in a little bit. Increasing that candidate diversity, time to fill or time to hire, depending on what you track for referral hires, and percent of referral hires receiving offers. So companies that are tracking these are less likely to meet those. But again, some more metrics that you could consider when you're thinking about how to set up and or measure your program. I can't go through a referral presentation without getting the question around referral bonuses. So I've thrown some of this data in here for you. A full 98% of the survey respondents offer cash bonuses for referral hires. So that's essentially very commonplace. Are they offering bonuses for all positions? About 2/3 are, about 1/3 aren't, and lots of reasons that this might be the case. This year's the first time I've asked this question: which budget pays for your referral bonuses? This can drive a lot of what your ability to actually drive the program. Is it your central TA budget, just under half, or the hiring managers paying that referral fee out of their budgets? Almost the same amount of respondents are in those two categories. Other central budgets that might come out of, or decentralized TA budgets, if you're regionally, globally kind of focused, that's where that money is coming from. So the top two really being TA, building that into your budget, your actual TA operation budget, versus having those payments come out of the hiring manager's budgets. And the number one question I always get is, what are people paying in referral bonuses? So we asked, the value of their standard referral. We asked people to kind of focus on what their standard awards are. Lots of companies do kind of like surge programs or one-time incentives, but really focused on those standard awards. The most popular response was between $2,000 and $5,000. You can see almost a third of our respondents their referral awards are falling in that category, and then somewhat evenly distributed in those other categories. A lot of this is driven by the types of roles a company might be hiring for, locations, a whole host of things can drive this. But this is good benchmarking data for you to take a look at. What are other people paying in their referral bonuses? So all of that leads me to the topic of this webinar: is the 4 reasons that your program might be underperforming, that you might not be meeting those goals. You might not be sure that you're being successful. And we're going to dive into each of these. That lack of knowledge. What do your employees really understand or know about not only the program, but the types of people you're looking for? Complicated rules and processes. Anybody that's seen me present on referrals anytime in the last decade knows that I really hone in here. We've got to make this process simple. We've got to make the rules simple. We have to be as inclusive as possible. Insignificant recognition. Acknowledging referrals, referral hires, building what I call a culture of referrals. And we'll talk about that as well. And then only thinking inside your company. We've got to not necessarily limit ourselves just to our employees. So let's jump in. Lack of knowledge. These are the questions your employees are asking if they ever think about the referral program. One of the things I always try to remind TA professionals of is that we all run around in this world thinking about who would be a good fit for a job, what people do. We ask those kinds of questions. What kind of skills do they have? Who might be a cultural match for my organization? Your average employees don't do this. They don't think like we do as recruiters. So you need to help them along. They don't know how we do our jobs. They don't understand what we might necessarily be looking for. So helping them understand what jobs are even open, depending on your organization. You could have hundreds of jobs open. As the leader of TA, my last time in corporate, we had somewhere between right around 2,000 jobs open at any given time. I didn't know what they were. Why would I expect the employees to know that? The second question is really of utmost importance in this process. How do they know who in their network has the necessary skills? What I find fascinating about just thinking about people in your network is it's very much like other people's children. Like the last time I saw somebody's son, he was 6 years old. So in my mind, he's always 6 years old. I see him 6 years later and he's a completely different human being at 12. We do that with people we used to work with all the time. When you worked with them 5, 6 years ago, they were in a specific role. And then suddenly they've gone out and done a whole bunch of things that you don't necessarily know what that is because you don't work with them every day. So you don't know what skills they have. Probably 10 years ago, I got a call from someone in the industry who was looking for a recruiting manager, wanted to know if I had any recommendations. I gave them some names. I said, you know what, let me look through my LinkedIn connections just to see who's out there. And there was a recruiting coordinator that I worked with maybe 7, 8 years before that, named Megan, who was a killer recruiting coordinator. But when I left the company, that's what she was. Well, she had since left, become a recruiter, a recruiting manager, and she even actually worked in the legal field, which is where my networking contact came out. So had I not spent the time to see who was in my network, I never would have thought of Megan, because to me, she was always a recruiting coordinator. It's much like other people's kids. That's how your employees think of things. They don't know how to share the jobs. In many cases, they don't even know how to refer someone at the company. So you need to really help them with all of these topics. So here are things that you can think about doing. You want to think about educating and inform. When you're thinking, how do I make sure the employees are participating? You want to bring that employee participation number up. Now, we don't just want them throwing random resumes at your ATS. You already get enough of those. We want them to bring forward people that are the right fit for your organization. So they first need to understand, what are you looking for? Where are your greatest needs? The other thing they need to know is how to search their network. Like I said, they're not recruiters. They're not on LinkedIn all day. They're not out there sourcing resumes. They don't know what to look for or who to look for. You need to help them market the program. You need to market the program. They need to understand what's going on, who are we looking for, what are the awards I could win, which is always very valuable. And then you need to help them utilize social sharing features in your ATS and CRM if you have them. So let's talk about some of those. How to communicate. Many of these things are simple, depending on your company size. Just sending out lists of those jobs you really need candidates for, whether that's an email, somewhere on your intranet, somewhere in Slack, in Teams, wherever you communicate with people, to give them that information. It can be as simple as just providing them some information about the jobs you're looking to fill. Some things I've seen be really successful with recruiters is going to those hiring manager staff meetings to talk about the jobs that are open, particularly on that team or in that group. There are people doing similar roles today are likely to have folks in their network that also have those types of skills, helping to educate them. Doing LinkedIn connection reviews. I'll talk about this in a second, but really helping people go through their LinkedIn. We know how to do it pretty effectively and efficiently, but unless you're searching for people all day, you're not really thinking about that. Other things that have been valuable are short videos. Recruiters, leader of the referral program, recording a short video on who we're looking for, what kinds of people you should be targeting, or how to submit a referral. So, what are you sharing? I've hit on a few of these. What are the specific skills you need? Again, these folks don't write job descriptions. They probably don't want to read job descriptions. So what are you specifically looking for? Traits needed to be successful. This is really important because, a engineer being successful at company A may not be successful in a similar role at company B from a culture or approach standpoint. So really helping folks figure out or understand what traits are required to be really successful. If your organization is one where there's a lot of collaboration and people are connecting with each other all the time, a candidate with the best skills but isn't comfortable in that world, prefers to work independently, might not be a very good fit. So you can help walk your employees through the kinds of people that you're looking for. Who is successful at your organization? Who is successful working for a specific hiring manager can even be valuable information. And then work with them to search their own LinkedIn network. I worked with a insurance company a couple of years ago where they just started hosting LinkedIn search events. They would bring in pizza and beer or soda, depending on the company, and just helping people go through their network and find individuals that are a good match. This will allow them to rethink about the person they worked with 5 years ago that was just a recruiting coordinator, and now they're a recruiting manager. So they might not know that. So you can impart your knowledge on them. You can show them how to search LinkedIn, how to look for different types of things. Sit down, well, but not so much in COVID, maybe not sit down beside them, but get on a Zoom, go into a breakout room and help them work through, have them share their screen. You can walk them through that. And then how the referral process works. What do they need to do? What information is required? Very, very necessary. And then also educate them on your hiring process. Because keep in mind, they're going to be the closest connection to the referral. So if the referral starts moving through your process and something's not working for them, or they aren't sure what's happening next, they're likely to reach out to the person that referred them. So making sure those folks are educated on what the process is, but just how to get help, who to reach out to if your referral is stuck in the process. Just need to educate them on how that works so they can help set the candidate expectations as well. Brand your program, message your program. This is a snapshot of a client we worked with a couple of years ago. They're based in the Midwest. They're a major retail bank, and we rebuilt their entire program. And then we also built a brand for the message. This was called the One Commerce program. We had the tagline of refer, reward, repeat, and then imagery that really worked well for them. And again, this was launched pre-COVID, so there was a lot of in-person things, but there were posters, there were flyers. They had a lot of retail bank branches, so posters and flyers really worked well. Giveaway items of the pen, really valuable. They had built an entire intranet site around the program, and they had branded email templates so that when TA was communicating about the program, it had a brand, it had a message, it connected people back to the program. These are all types of things that you can do to connect your employees, inform them of the program, help them understand what they need to do and who you're looking for. So you really want to make sure there's some branding and messaging around your program. The next challenge that could be causing you to underperform are those complicated rules and processes. So let's go back to the survey because there were some really interesting things here. Asking employers, do they have different bonus amounts or tiers? So almost 70% of our respondents said yes, they had different bonus amounts or tiers. If you take a look here, a full 40% have 4 or more tiers, so lots of layers. And then what are those tiers based on? We asked that question, mostly position level, but also skill sets, locations. You all probably have some hard to fill locations. You may use those in your tiers. Security clearance for those that work in the federal government contracting space. This can really drive why you have tiers. The other things are around participation and payment rules. Who's excluded from participating in the program? Lots of answers here. The most common, hiring managers for their own position. You can see the list here. Least common were nobody being excluded or non-exempt employees. So we really are like, why? Who's being excluded from this process? You can see who's most likely all HR employees. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then my least favorite program feature is splitting those referral payments into 2 or more payments. So a full 70% or almost 70% are splitting their payments. So employees are getting a part of the payment at one point in time and another part of the payment at another point in time. And there are even instances of that being 3 different payments. And then why do they split those bonuses? A whole host of reasons there. So here's the recommendations on simplifying those rules and processes. The more complex you make it, the less likely people are to participate. So we need to think simple, you need to think inclusive, you need to think less, not more. No more than 2 tiers of rewards. This becomes difficult to track. It becomes difficult to justify in many instances. So really true best practice around the number of tiers of the awards you have. If you can have 1 tier, that's even better, but I've yet to work with a company that has that. But I would encourage you to think about less, not more, excuse me. Include more employee groups. Often your list of people who cannot participate is 10, 12 lines long. You are sending the message that we don't want people to participate. We want to, block folks from being involved. Now, I completely get that people who have a say in the hiring process should not be bonused off of the person that gets hired. So hiring managers for their own positions. If I'm hiring somebody onto my team at HireClicks, I should not, and I'm referring people in, I should not also get bonused for that. I'm making the decision, but I'm also getting a lot of gain from adding to my team. So that makes complete sense. Recruiters being excluded. That makes complete sense. That's our job, is to get people hired at the company. And we should be referring people in that we know or have worked with. But outside of that, I often have a hard time justifying many other groups of people, like all of HR. It really is your benefits specialist involved in any way in hiring. If they refer someone for, a finance position, they're bringing quality candidates. They should be rewarded. I encourage you to look at your program rules and see who you might be able to now start to include versus exclude. Number 3, if I had my soapbox, I would get out on it right now. This dividing the award into multiple payments across time, not paying it all at one time, is really problematic. 2 reasons. First of all, you're creating double or triple the administrative work for whomever has to administer the program and administer the payments. So there's a lot of effort happening. If I know John referred Susie got hired on December 1st, I have to keep track of that because Susie has to hit her 90-day period before John can be paid, and then it has to be another 6 months. That's just spreadsheet hell, to be completely honest, without accomplishing a lot. If you have these split payments today, I strongly encourage you to go over the last year of referral hires and look and see how many of them actually left the company between payment 1 and payment 2. I have yet to find anywhere where that's higher than 5 or 6%. Bring the data, do the research, make your argument. You're also saving administrative time, not only on whoever's running the program, but your payroll folks or accounts payable, however these bonuses are getting sent out, they're doing double and triple work. Really go back and look, because people tell me we're splitting this bonus to make sure that folks stay. Okay, great. Except they're not leaving anyway. And if you're in a really high turnover world, yes, I get there might be some exceptions there. But in general, this is really important. The other thing I will add here, I don't have data around this, but it's another pet peeve of mine on that, they need to stay. I'm not going to pay them if people don't stay. That's a problem. Think about it this way. When you hire someone because you advertise the job promoted it on Indeed, and that person comes in and starts working and quits after 60 days, do you call up Indeed and say, I want my money back? No, that's ridiculous. Why would you treat your employees worse than you treat a vendor? Really encourage you to think about that very differently. Number 4 is on the process. Go try to refer a candidate to your company today, whatever your process is. If it takes you more than 3 clicks to do it, step back and look at what you can take out of this process. If you're using your applicant tracking systems methodology, how do employees navigate there? How do they get their folks into your system? Even if you just have email into this box, what happens after that to get them connected and know what's happening with their candidate? If it's more than 3 clicks for them to submit a candidate, rethink the process, see what you can take out. Talk, if you're using your ATS or CRM, talk with your vendor to see if they have some other best practices, other ways to potentially do it in the system. So some best practices for you to take away around program rules. I talked about who should be included. Most or all of your positions eligible, two tiers of awards. Process. The first bullet is really important. Make sure it's a mobile-friendly process to submit a candidate. People are on their phones all the time. If they have to get to a desktop computer in order to submit a candidate, it's likely not to happen. Just extra steps. Once they remove themselves, maybe they're texting with a former coworker and like, oh, you might be a really good fit for a current job. If they have to remember to go to their email or go to your website and start looking at things, they're likely to forget. Make it mobile friendly. Most applicant tracking systems today, if you're using that functionality, is somewhat mobile friendly. I would encourage you to have less than 2 clicks in that instance, but just check on those things. Only ask for that contact information. If you're requiring your employees to bring forward a full resume, or even write a paragraph about why this person should be a good fit. You're just making it more difficult. If you've got the contact information for the candidate, in many cases, your technology can shoot that candidate a message saying, "You've been referred by Sue. Please come complete the rest of our application." Do not make it difficult, because then they have to get their resume from their friend and then send it in. Make it simple. So show social sharing capabilities. Find ways with your technology, work with your vendors to allow your employees to share on their personal social media profiles that you have an open job. And often those can have automatic tracking. So if I share on my Facebook page that HireClicks has an open job and Kevin applies to that job, it's automatically tagged to me if he used that link off of my Facebook page. Super simple. And then some sort of dashboard where your employees can see the referral status. The biggest nightmare of a referral program manager is all of those emails that come into you to say, what's going on with my referral? What happened to my referral? Did my referral get an offer? Did they get an interview? That takes a lot of time for you to look them up and respond. Or worse yet, you don't have the time to respond. And so now the program becomes a black hole. You want to have some sort of simple dashboard. Again, if your ATS has this functionality to submit referrals, they likely have a simple dashboard. If you're not using it, connect with them. So you definitely want to make this as easy as possible for your employees to get those quality candidates. Remember, you've already educated them on who makes the most sense to refer. Employees just don't want to throw people into the process if they don't match. You've already taught them how to do that. So you should make it as easy as possible for them to bring those folks forward. Insufficient recognition. There are not many organizations that do this extremely well. But let's talk about the waiting period. I got ahead of myself on my soapbox around the waiting period. You can see here for benchmarking your program, almost all employers have some sort of waiting period. And then how long is that period? 3 months was the most popular. Again, you want to tie the reward. This is just simple psychology. We want to reward the behavior that we want to encourage is close to that actual action of the behavior. So if you think about, let's just say your time to fill is around 45 days. When employees send you a candidate, it takes you 45 days to get through the process for them to get an offer. There's another 2 weeks for them to give their notice and come on board. And then it's 3 more months after they start before you actually pay the employee the referral bonus. You're now 5-6 months away from the actual activity that you're trying to encourage. You need to move the reward as close to the activity that you want to encourage as possible. If you split that bonus across time, you're now pulling that out even further. And depending on your bonuses, if you're paying a $500 bonus and you split that in half, that's $250 that appears at 3 months and maybe 6 months after taxes. Do many employees even realize they got the bonus? So you are not connecting the reward to the actual activity that you're trying to encourage. So I strongly encourage you to think about this. Again, do that data analysis. Who really left between payment 1 and payment 2? Non-cash referral rewards. We aren't seeing this really increase. Again, survey of about 5 years ago looked very similar here. About 20% of respondents were saying they offer some sort of non-cash rewards somewhere in the process. You see the list of things that they offer, what those might be, and when they are offering them. There can be, gift cards and movie tickets are very popular. Maybe more gift cards now, not so many movie tickets. But when a referral is submitted or a referral is recommended for an interview, again, you're giving a small incentive, but is close to the behavior you want to encourage. You want to encourage quality referrals. If somebody brings you someone who is a quality referral, they're getting that hiring manager interview, you want to thank them as quickly as possible. That will prompt them to say, oh, I should refer more people. Let me think about some other people. And I may still get a cash award if that individual is offered and accepts the job. Other things that are offered, logo items, depending on your company, these can be really valuable. Paid time off, we're seeing be a little more popular as a reward. So a whole host of things you can do. These gift cards can be small, $15, $20, $25, really encouraging that behavior. You really want to think about bringing forward what behavior do you need to encourage. If your referrals are just not happening, you don't have a lot of employees participating, you want to reward that behavior of submitting a referral or submitting a quality referral to encourage more people to think about that. And it's a smaller reward, but honestly, people are incredibly appreciative. Through recognition, you can really build a culture of referrals in your company. The first bullet here is the most important. Ask your employees what they want. What would be of value to them? Gather that information. You might find some things are surprising. I have an example coming up of where we learned about something people wanted that wasn't even on the radar. So don't assume you know. Ask them, do some focus groups, do some surveys, just ask what it is that they're interested in. That's the first step in making the rewards worthwhile. If you're giving them something they don't care about, they're not really motivated. Reward the behavior you're trying to influence. I've hit this a couple times already. Providing that reward as soon as possible, and really publicly celebrate whatever that looks like for your organization. So here's some ideas and examples. From a Fortune 100 financial services firm, they were really looking to get more quality referrals. They were getting a lot of referrals that were just adding noise to the recruiter. Instead of you'd get 100 applicants overnight, referral program would add 20 onto that. Nobody has time to look through all of those. And if they aren't great quality, they're just adding work on the recruiter, because we do want to respond to referrals. We want to make sure they get at least communicated to in some way. So they decided we're just going to encourage people when their referral gets invited to a hiring manager interview. So I was a really quality person. $10 Starbucks gift card. And their main location in New York City, they had a Starbucks in their lobby. So this was really, really valuable there for those people in their headquarters, because it was something they could use literally downstairs. A small kind of SMB, probably about 500-600 employees, IT services provider, they got personal shout outs and recognition from the CEO at the quarterly town halls. Everyone who had a referral hired was called up on stage. Again, let's be a little more creative in the current times. But the other piece they gave, company logo items, company swag, was really valuable to them. They actually had a track jacket with the company logo on it that was only available to people who had a referral hired. The only way you could get this item is by referring somebody. It created a lot of energy and enthusiasm. This worked for this company. That may not be the right culture approach for you, but you've asked what they want, so you can start to see what those things might look like or how they manifest themselves. Midwest Bank, the one we worked on the branding with, I personally conducted the employee focus groups around the program and what they were looking for. And in every single focus group, we did 8 of them. Every single focus group, unprompted, I said what rewards would be most sought after for getting for a referral getting hired. Additional PTO was always number 1. It tied very much back to their culture of work-life balance, having interests outside of the office. This made complete sense. This was so loud and clear that they worked into their program that when you had a referral hire, you got a choice between the cash reward or 2, 3, 4 days of PTO. It varied based on their tiers. So this was something that would not have been on the radar if we hadn't asked the employees. And last time I checked in with them, their program's almost 2 years old, but last time I checked in with them, somewhere between 30 and 40% of employees were choosing extra time off over the cash reward. And that allows employees to have a choice. That's exciting. Fortune 50 manufacturing firm, here's the diversity piece I mentioned earlier. They really wanted to increase diversity of their candidate pool as a whole. They had a very robust referral program already, but they really wanted to bring diversity forefront. So they worked with all their ERGs, their employee resource groups, whatever you all might call them, the ethnic groups, LGBTQ groups, the new college grads, whatever they might be, they actually visited each one of these meetings virtually because they were a global company, and talked about what they were looking for, helped people understand who to refer, and then they ran a contest between the different groups who could get the most referrals hired in a quarter. And they did a big celebration for the winning group. I don't have the data in front of me because it's been some time, but their candidate pool diversity increased substantially, somewhere in the nature of 20-25%, based on this where referrals were included. So just another way to think about it. And then the largest rental car company, they've been doing this for years. It works in their culture. The TA team visits the facility where the referring employee works with the big Publishers Clearinghouse check and balloons. They throw confetti. They make a huge deal. People that don't even work there anymore tell me about this. So it's just something that worked really well in their culture. They had the capability to do it based on locations. So just thinking about those kinds of things can really connect the employees to the program. And you really are recognizing them, make it a part of your culture. You have that culture of referrals. You will start to see the change, not just a number of referrals, but the quality of referrals and people's engagement with the program. The last one is only thinking inside your company. Non-employee referrals. We asked the question in the survey, are non-employees eligible to refer? I was excited to see about 30% saying yes. That's a significant increase over about the 12% from 5 years ago. What kind of reward do they get? Most are getting that cash bonus or something else. And there's just a little word cloud when we asked what non-employees are eligible to refer. So expanding your environment, thinking about who else can refer people to you, who else knows your company's business, knows what kinds of people that you're looking for. Here's some groups of people to think about. Number one is my favorite, and I may be dating myself here, my recruiting days from calling people's references. The end of every call was, do you know anybody else that might be a good fit for this job or this company that you and I just talked about? If you aren't doing referrals or references now, if you're using an online reference tool of some sort, you can also ask this question. But if your candidates are bringing references forward, you should be reaching out to them for referrals, letting them know that you offer some sort of reward. Alumni, your former employees, they obviously know what it's like to work there. They know what it takes to be successful. Most of them, hopefully, reaching out, including them in your program. Vendors you work closely with, partners of any sort who know your business, your customers, temps and contractors, including them in the process, can really expand the pool of potential candidates as well. And how do you do this? Many applicant tracking systems and CRMs have functionality that will allow people that are not employees to refer. If you don't know if yours does, reach out and ask them. Maybe a simple online submission form if the ATS functionality doesn't work. Other things to think about before you start, here's a big asterisk. Before you start thinking about paying people outside of your company, talk with your accounts payable team because there are potential tax implications. I'm not going to pretend to be a CPA, but there's lots of paperwork that might need to be done. You just need to work with them to understand what they would need in advance. And then clearly communicating the requirements and results, making sure people aren't tied to your company daily, they don't get internal emails, but making sure they understand. That will give you the opportunity to expand your pool, get more quality candidates in. Even if you get a couple of handful of hires out of expanding the pool, those are people you did not have to go out and source on your own or pay to attract to the organization. And again, someone who refers once and is rewarded is likely to refer multiple times again. And that's, they'll get better at referring, whether they're your employees or external folks. Once they see who's getting offers, why are those people a good fit? It will help them hone their approach and decide who makes the most sense for them to refer. So we'll go back to the beginning after I went through the data. What are those reasons? that your program underperforms. The lack of knowledge, finding ways to inform and educate your employees about your referral program, about what makes a good candidate, the skills that you're after, the soft skill, intangible things that allow people to be successful not only in your interview process, but in your company as a whole. Those complicated rules and processes include more people, fewer tiers, make it easy for people to refer. Stop splitting the bonus payments, stop waiting forever to pay those bonuses, give them the whole amount like in the next pay period. Again, look at your data. In most cases, it will justify the fact to do one payment early on in the process. The insufficient recognition, talk to employees about what they would like to see. Think about creative ways to embed that into your organization to really achieve that culture of referrals. And then thinking outside of the finite number of employees that you have. Who else is related to your organization in a whole host of ways? Former employees, partners in the business, people that do temp work for you, whomever that might be. How can you include them in that bigger picture? How can you include them so that they can refer people to you that you might not otherwise be aware of or might not know about you as an employer? Those are the 4 things to really think about with all of those remaining examples. And that's the end of all of the deck. Kevin and Ron, I don't know if we have any questions that have come in.
We do. And by the way, I loved to see the fact that the increase in companies giving referrals bonuses to candidates.
Yes.
Right? Because we know in our research, those candidates who have the higher positive candidate experience overall are more willing to refer their friends and colleagues, even though they didn't get hired at the end of the day.
100%. Let's cast a wider net.
Yeah, exactly. So it was great. I think that's, again, thinking outside just the employees that you have, I think is definitely that was one of the big takeaways for me, but it was a fabulous presentation, Kara. We do have lots of questions. We'll see if we can't get to as many as we can before we run out of time for the hours of the sands of the hourglass run. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Okay. So here's the first one. Is the amount of the referral bonus tied to the success of the program? More money equal more candidates or higher quality?
That is a fantastic question. The simple answer is no. There has been a lot of research. SHRM has done it a couple of times over the last decade on the dollar amount that's kind of the tipping point, that if you go above this, you actually get inundated with candidates who are not quality. So you're just creating noise for your recruiters. That's typically hit somewhere between $1,500 and $3,000 across time. It's going to be unique to your organization. Location plays a lot in that. But personally, whenever I ran recruiting, I was VP of TA at SAIC. We looked for highly cleared technical people, very hard to find. I had 2 business units that no matter what I did, I could not get them to stop offering these huge bonuses, like $10,000.
Right.
And I would track and bring them the data that said, oh, look, before you did the new bonus, it was like $2,500 normally. So, we on average got, 10 quality or 10 referrals a week. As soon as you went to 10,000, I got 200 referrals a week that now your recruiters who should be out looking for candidates have to go through every single one and at least contact. It was a nightmare. And in 7 years, we paid that $10,000 bonus 3 times in 7 years.
Wow.
So not worth it. I highly discourage you from going that route.
And yet we hear that in competitive regions, right? Depending on the kinds of hires that you're making, that still tends to be the case.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well here's another question. So often recruiters see employee referral programs as something that might steal their jobs. That's an interesting perspective. How do you win them over with these kinds of programs then?
That's fantastic. I don't know that I've ever been presented with recruiters thinking it's stealing their jobs.
Sure.
I really look at, your job as a recruiter is to put the right person in the right job as quickly as possible. If referrals are bringing more quality people forward to you, then you're able to make that happen. And if you have the top of your funnel has more quality in it versus quantity, you can now really give that positive candidate experience, that positive hiring manager experience. And you can start to add a lot more value to your day-to-day role. If you've got more quality coming in the top, the noise is gone, you can really provide an excellent level of service. So I would encourage them to think about it like that.
That's excellent perspective. Absolutely. Another question. We found that there is a portion of our employees who don't refer, not because they don't love their job and company, because they either like their friends but don't want them to work with them.
Yes.
I guess there's that, of course. And because at other companies they've had bad experiences where someone they referred got fired. Yes. And or something to that effect, and they felt badly again when they reflected on that. So how, again, it's kind of a tangential one to the one we just asked, I think, in a way, right? So
yeah. I mean, I would look at it as, first of all, going back to that kind of educate and inform. If you're able to help your employees really understand who makes a good employee here, now they're not in any sort of control if the employee does some sort of fireable offense later, but I can see why that would be a challenge. But if you're really arming them with, here's who is most likely to be successful here, let's help you narrow down that big group of friends to who is most likely to be successful, and we all have the friend or two that we don't want to work with. So I get that you want to refer them, but being aware of what's going on elsewhere in your organization. If you're an organization of, any sort of size, a few hundred people to 1,000 people even, there's likely other departments that you don't work with where they might very well be a fit. So they
Sure.
can work at the same company as you, but you don't have to work with them every day.
Got it. That's a good point. Very much so. Another question for you, Kara. So can the candidate just apply themselves in the ATS and note who referred them?
So it depends on how you want to set it up.
Right.
I have seen plenty of companies that do that they have the option to say, I'm an employee referral, and there's either a field that they type in the person's name, but when they type in John Smith, I'm not sure exactly what happens, but sometimes it's also linked to your employee list. So they could, in the background, like, I'm not saying give everybody access to your employee list. I'm just saying in the background of the ATS that it can make that connection for you. But the Midwest Bank we worked with, that's exactly how they do it. They use Workday, and they don't use the Workday actual functionality for referrals because it has its own challenges.
Sure.
They have that field, and they're in 20 some states. They have a whole lot of different businesses. And when they get those more common names, their referral program person just goes and looks up the employees and sees if they can make a match. It doesn't honestly happen that often. They more often get people saying the CEO referred them. Yes. So depending on what works for your company and what your technology is, that's better than nothing. That's better than trying to keep track of it on a spreadsheet or anything along those lines. So I've seen that work at companies of great size.
Yeah, well, good. Thanks for sharing that. We've got time for try to get 2 or 3 more in under the wire here. So any thoughts on how to address hiring teams who believe that they did all the work hiring talent versus TA? And leadership that think VPs and above should not get referral bonuses because it's part of their job.
So let me answer the second one first.
Okay.
I've heard that very loud and clear. And yet, is it a part of their job to grow the business? 100%.
Right.
It is possible to include them in the program so that they can submit referrals and they can get tagged as referrals. If your CEO feels strongly that they shouldn't be paid, they're already highly paid. What's an additional $500? I can see that as a potential exception. I've had people lift that, and employees or VPs have said, that's fantastic. That just allows me to feel like I'm a part of the employees who are all doing this together.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. When talking about when to pay the referral bonus, what is your actual recommendation? Pay right after the person accepts the offer, after the first day, after 30, 60, 90 days?
So what I strongly encourage everyone is let's wait till the person starts. So once they become an employee, whatever your next pay period is, pay the bonus to that employee in a paycheck. So as close as you can get that to it. I worked for a home builder. We got paid months a month. So was always delayed by a month, but that was the best we could do. But if you're on every 2 weeks or twice a month, if somebody starts on the 2nd of December, if you can put it in their December 30th paycheck, that'd be fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you. And let's see, Kara, what else we have here? Is it best practice to accept runner-up referrals? So if the first refer is deemed ineligible, it goes to the next refer if there are multiple referrers for the same person. I'm assuming that's what they're talking about.
So if someone, a VP, for example, referred a candidate, they're not eligible to receive the bonus that the next person that referred them. I don't see any problem with that. I mean, there's probably some crazy situation I'm not thinking of, but I would see that as being valuable.
Because there's always a crazy situation.
There's always, yes. In referrals, there are dozens of them.
Everybody knows that. There's always. Yes. I'm sorry. There's a funny meme going around that I have to share really quick and it's this little blonde kid with this, looks like a picture from the 70s, which kind of looked like me back in the day, with this striped shirt and this little guitar. And he's like, I wrote a song about 2020. It goes like this, and he's like crying.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry. I just thought I would share that. I'm like, I had that shirt and the guitar when I was little. Okay. Next question. How many people on average should it take to manage a successful referral program? What's the structure look like? I guess it's also going to vary on hiring volume and size of organization and structure, even the organization itself, right?
So interestingly enough, we actually asked that question in the survey: how many people does it take to manage? And we asked in the FTEs, because sometimes it's a quarter of somebody's job and half of somebody else's job, and also encourage them to think about everybody involved. So the people in payroll that have to process those payments, all of those things, and it varied wildly from like 25% to 10 people. So it does really matter on organization, what kind of technology you have supporting your program. If you're doing this all on spreadsheets, it's going to take a lot more than if you're using an ATS referral. So whoever asked that question, please, Kara@HireClicks.com, shoot me an email. I will be more than happy to talk about your individual situation and give you some benchmarks to look at.
That's great. Well, we're out of time now, Kara. We've got to move on to the next thing in the next hour. So thanks everybody so much for joining us. What we'll do, Kara, is we'll send these other questions that weren't answered to you so that you can follow up with them. Yep. And again, why don't you say your email one more time?
Sure. It's Kara, Kara, @HireClicks, HireClix.com. Definitely shoot me a message or find me on LinkedIn and connect as well.
Great. Thanks again, Kara and HireClicks and everybody. And if we don't see you again on another webinar, everybody, happy holidays. So thank you.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thanks so much, Kevin.